I invite Snehasi sir to kindly invite Mrinal for the next session.
It is a great pleasure and privilege for me to invite Professor Dr. Mrinal Chatterjee. And yes, again, a friend for so many years. Sir has worked as a professional journalist and had been the editor of a edition. So obviously, he has a vast experience of a field reporter as well as the editor of an edition, outline edition. Then he has been teaching various aspects of journalism and mass communication in the Dhenkanal campus, which is the second campus of Indian Institute of Mass Communication, which is the premier institution of mass communication studies in our country. Sir has single-handedly running this institution. Sir has written several books on journalism and fiction also. Sir has vast experience. Sir has traveled abroad. Sir has made lot of projects with Unicef and various other state governments and Government of India. His passion and commitment is also there for development journalism and practicing development journalism, that how the issues of development can figure in your reportings. So, sir is a committed, passionate, able teacher with vast experience of profession and teaching. It is again a great opportunity for us even to have Professor Chatterjee, who has been associated with this kind of projects in not only in Eastern India, Odisha, West Bengal, but also in the Northeast, also in Rajasthan and various other states, including the IIMC Delhi campus. And sir has conducted several such training programs in IIMC Dhenkanal campus for various kinds of people. We consider Dhenkanal campus of IIMC as our own, and we also consider Professor Mrinal Chatterjee in our own team. A professor of highest repute in Eastern India. We go to him for any help and he is always there for his commitment and passion. Sir, I think students will immensely be benefited as we have been benefited throughout our career also. And I'm extremely grateful that you always find time for students to come out with these kinds of inputs. And with you, I also welcome especially the students of Indian Institute of Mass Communication, Dhenkanal campus. You see, pandemic has done so many bad things, but there are one or two things which it has brought with the digital technology, that who is where is not the question today. You can be anywhere, but you can access to the best possible international level discourses. So you are with us. There is no barrier. There is no border. We call editors without borders, journalism without borders. We have a lot of hopes for you, and you are here. And this network of you with our students of SKBU, Sidhu Kanu Birsa University, which is situated in Purulia, with Gaurbango University, which is situated in Malda, North Bengal University, which is situated in Shiliguri, and various other institutions. So which institution you belong to is not the main concern. You are the students' fraternity, and we are networked for a cause. And we have people like Professor Chatterjee to lead us in attaining goals in this cause. Over to Professor Chatterjee, sir.
Thank you. Coming straight to the subject at hand, for the next 50 odd minutes, we shall be discussing about development journalism. I'll divide my deliberation into two parts. Part one, I'll try to explain development. What is development journalism? Different kinds and strands of development journalism. That I'll do for about 20 minutes. The next 30 odd minutes, we'll talk about the praxis side. how do we practice development journalism? Is there something special about development journalism, or do we require some special skills to practice development journalism? Right? These are the questions that we will engage with towards the second part of my deliberation. I'm doing this because this has been part of my life. 15 years of my life I have spent as a practicing journalist. And for the last 22 years, I have been a teacher. So praxis, academics, let's mix together. Let's begin with theories and the basics. What exactly do we mean by development? Right? Concept of development, or the way people looked at development, started theorizing about development. The initial thrust was to look at, well, material prosperity. खाना ठीक तरह से मिल रहा है कि नहीं मिल रहा है, कितना मिल रहा है. Mapping development or poverty or stuff like that through calorie. Then पैसा कितना है, GDP, gross domestic product, whether a country is rich or poor. How do you map it? See its GDP. And what praise GDP? Total कितना production है, कितना population है, divided by, right? So you get the GDP. So the more GDP, that precisely means people have more money. These are the initial benchmarking of prosperity, of development. So development was equated with prosperity initially. And then people thought of other, elements of development. सिर्फ prosperity. लोगों के पास बहुत पैसा हो गया, इसका मतलब वो developed हो गए. Right? And when we talk about averaging thing, अरे इंडिया में अंबानी भी है, अडानी भी है, उनके पास तो करोड़ों हैं. And there are poor people. So how do we kind of see who is developed, right? In a society, we have Ambani, Adani, Tata, Birla, and people who are stinking rich, and we have people who are so poor that they can be equated with sub-Saharan Africa. So ये ठीक नहीं बैठा. Then we started looking at other strands or parameters of development. And then, to cut a long story short, gradually, different groups of economists, they devised different concepts of development. Presently, we have, in short, 9 parameters of development. Details about that, probably Dr. Rai will tell you in subsequent classes, but let me give you an idea about these 9 parameters. It talks about 1, material prosperity at the basic level. Second, it talks about education, how educated is a community, how educated is a person or a nation. Right? Third, health. How healthy is a nation? Healthy doesn't mean mota. Like I am a fat old man. That doesn't mean I am a healthy man. Right? So healthy. What are the indicators? IMR kitna hai? Maternal mortality rate kitna hai? What is the status of nutrition? Malnutrition bacche kitne hai? All these are parameters. Right? So third is health. Then fourth is political voice and freedom. आपके पास पैसा आ गया, आपके पास एजुकेशन हो गया, हेल्दी भी हो, लेकिन फ्रीडम नहीं है. Will you call that a proper development without freedom? Definitely not. So freedom became one of the parameters. And with freedom ke saath, then yes, I have freedom, but do I have freedom to debate? Do I have freedom to dissent? Do I have freedom to criticize? Right? So that freedom was also included as a parameter of development. The sixth parameter, of course, was governance. ठीक है, ये सारा आ गया. लेकिन as somebody just said, governance ठीक है कि नहीं? है ना? हम ठीक ठाक सब चल रहा है. Roads are okay. Public transport are okay. Public institutions are okay. Do I have speedy justice? All these are part of governance. So governance again is one parameter of development. Then comes social support. Social support. I am old. Do I have somebody to support me except my near relatives, blood relatives? Will the society, does an institution is there to support me? Right? I am at a great loss. Will the state support me? Will I be supported by others? So support. Institutionalized support system. That also became a parameter of development. And then, well, personal security. Okay, ये सारी बातें हो गया. But मैं घर से निकल सकता हूँ क्या रात के 12 बजे? है ना? घूम सकता हूँ क्या without getting, mocked and all? Personal security. Right? Do I have the freedom to move around freely without having this scare within me that somebody will come and beat me and take my things away? Huh? People are mortally scared to go places like Rio de Janeiro because it's one of the most unsafe cities. They have money. They have many of the criteria that I just told you, but they do not have this. Right? Last but not the least, we call it economic security. Old age. Right? बेटा भी देख नहीं रहा है, पोता देख नहीं रहा है, मैं जिंदा रहूंगा या सुसाइड कर लूं या भीख मांगू रास्ते के साइड में बैठ के. Economic security. Security provided by the state. Security provided by the society. Security provided by an institution. Right? All these are the main 9 parameters of development. This has been done. These parameters have been fixed, not over 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, centuries. It took centuries and it took several schools of economists in which we have our own Amartya Sen, we have our own Banerjee, right? Now, and development has 4 pillars. 4 pillars. These 4 pillars are: 1, security, the institutional security. 2nd, personal security, land rights. Do I have rights of my own, personal rights? Then governance, which is security. I have personal rights, nobody can take it away. But if somebody takes it away, then there we need a system, an institution, a governance, right? But only these 2 is not enough. We must have values, collective values. And 4th is an inclusive kind of a society. These are the 4 pillars on which development, the superstructure of development rests. Right? Now let's talk about development journalism. The kind of journalism which engages with all the parameters of development that I just told you and the pillars of development that I just told you. The kind of journalism which actively, focusedly, with focus, engages with this kind, these elements, right? we call it development journalism. It's plain and simple. This particular term, development journalism, was coined sometime in 1960s, 70s, precisely at the Press Foundation of Asia. It was Filipino journalists, two Filipino journalists who kind of pieces together concepts to make this development journalism, the concept of development journalism, which they say that it will engage with issues overlooked by the then mainstream journalists or mainstream media. Right? It will look at issues concerning marginalized people. It will look at issues often not focused by mainstream media. They thought that this and focusing on development would make it development journalism. However, I think at the basics, all good journalism have tenets of development journalism. Because like in development journalism, in all good journalism, the focus is, well, human beings. Right? When you focus on the human beings, probably you are moving towards development journalism. Right? Or let me put it this way, any journalism which focuses on development could be termed as development journalism. Now you can approach this. Now we are gradually moving towards praxis. How do we practice it? When we approach development, when we approach journalism from development perspective, here there could be 2-3 strands, different strands. One strand, you can talk for development. You have either you have a notion of what is development, or the government fixes and you agree to that. Right? So one strand is you write for development. You want a change in the present situation about which you are not happy. You want a change. The vision of which you have in front of you, either you see it or it's shown by the government or some other experts, right? And you want people to move towards that. So that's one strand. The second strand is, this is for development. Another is about development, the other strand, right? What do I mean by about development? You critically analyze schemes that have been put up by the government, right? And find out, has it worked? If it hasn't, then where are the loopholes? Why it didn't happen the way it was envisaged? Where are the fault lines? So you critique that. Please see and appreciate that the purpose of both kinds of journalism are the same, development. But the way it takes, the way you engage with it, right, is different. The first one is for development, any which way. Second one is about development, where you probably critique more. In the first kind of development, you probably are more focused on solution. Right? Having said that, let's now discuss the skill sets or what development journal. We will discuss about the skill sets towards the end. Now let's discuss what exactly you need to do when you write a piece which you think is development journalism. Right? You do basically 4 things. One, is draw attention. You draw attention to a fact which is happening, right? But people probably are not understanding the significance of it. Often it happens. Let me give you an example. An example from Purulia. We had been to Purulia about a fortnight ago. And in Purulia, in a local newspaper, we found a story. I was expecting that story to hit national headline. It didn't. That precisely means that probably journalists over there, they missed the significance of the story. Or probably they couldn't frame this story the way it should have been. Now let me tell you that story. And I understand there are students joining here who are from Purulia. They may tell me whether they have noticed this story or not. But before that, let me take you to 1995 September. Probably many of you wouldn't have born on that far, right? 99 September. It so happened in 95 September that suddenly there was a news which spread like wildfire across the country that Ganesha is drinking milk. Have anyone heard about this story? You can answer. Anyone heard about this story? Rahi Chandra, have you heard about this story?
No, sir.
No, sir. Right. Okay. So it happened, right? Across the length and breadth of the country, the news spread, Ganesha is drinking milk. Tens of thousands of people thronged temples with katora full of milk, feeding Ganesha and saying that, dekho, dekho, Ganesha ne doodh pee liya. It so happened that milk disappeared, right? सारा दिन चला, खूब बिका दूध, 10 रुपया का दूध लीटर 100 रुपया हो गया, लोग कतार में खड़े हो गए, है ना? गणेशा को मिल्क पिलाया जा रहा था. गणेशा कितना हैप्पी हुआ पता नहीं. The milk vendors were very happy. ग्वाला बहुत हैप्पी हो गए, जितना पानी मिलाना चाहिए था उससे 3 डबल मिला दिया और बेच दिया. By the evening, there was another news explaining what exactly happened. Right? The scientists said there is something called surface tension. And Ganesha didn't drink milk. It was surface tension which drew the water down, and people thought that Ganesha is drinking milk. Next day, all the temples were empty of people lining up and feeding Ganesha milk. ये बड़ा न्यूज हुआ था तब. Now cut to 2022. 27 साल बाद, India has progressed. Our science has progressed. हम मंगलयान, चंद्रयान वगैरह कर रहे हैं. We are one of the superpowers when it comes to missile technology, cryogenic machines and whatnot. After 22 years, the same kind of incident happens in a village in Purulia. And this time in a Shiva temple. And this time not Shiva, but the bull Nandi. He drank the milk. And people thronged in the temple, right? Puja Archana Arab Suru ho gaya, hai na? And there were people lining up to feed milk to, this time, Nandi. Why I am telling you this story? This story tells that the superstitions that we had, that the lack of scientific temper of people is as old or at the level as it was in 1995. Now, don't you think this is a good development story? Somebody was talking about political pressure and this and that in the last session, right? There are political pressures. But what I want to impress upon you, there are several stories that you can do, which doesn't have to do anything with politics. And if you think about political pressure, ये political pressure आ जाएगा, मैं story नहीं कर पाऊंगा, then कभी नहीं कर पाओगे. Think about living on this earth, Baba. Atmosphere में वो air की pressure है कि नहीं? Anybody who has rudimentary knowledge of science, atmosphere में pressure है कि नहीं हवा की? है नहीं है? बोलो ललित कुमार. ये प्रेशर पता है कितना है? Just look up in Google, right? आप सरवाइव कर रहे हो नहीं कर रहे हो? अगर आप ये सोच के निकलोगे कि ओ माय गॉड एटमॉस्फेयर में इतना प्रेशर है, हम तो जी नहीं पाएंगे, तो जी नहीं पाओगे. So as a journalist, don't think about what this pressure आएगा, वो pressure आएगा, without even starting journalism. Get my point? वो बाद में आएगा, जो आएगा देखा जाएगा. पहले निकलो. And there are umpteen number of stories, like the kind of story that I just gave you an example of, right? Which you can do. And these are the stories which are important. These are the stories which you need to frame. Get my point? So the first thing that development journalism needs to do is to draw attention. And to draw attention, you need to know the tricks of storytelling. You need to frame it in such a way that people will look at it. I'm not going into framing theory and how do you frame stories and all. At IIMC Dhenkanal, what we have done, we have taken a dried branch, right, and put it up against a wall with some clamp. And we have drawn a frame around it, right? Just by hanging it on the wall and just by making a frame out of it, right, makes it an installation art. Otherwise, that would have been burned. कोई नोटिस भी नहीं करता था, पड़ा हुआ था, कोई नोटिस नहीं करता था, except probably the demon. They were noticing because they have to eat it up. What we did, we just put it against a wall, which we painted, and I put a frame around it. अब 3 साल से वो एक वर्क ऑफ आर्ट जैसा दिखता है, and लोग नोटिस करते हैं. This is what you need to do. I understand there are students of IIMC Dhenkanal also here who have come to the campus about 20 days now. Many of them probably haven't noticed or understood the significance of that artwork, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is that you need to know what needs attention of people. That is locating the story. That is understanding that this story is a big story. And second, you need to know the art of positioning it in a way that will draw attention. Second thing that needs to be done is to engage people in issues requiring debate and dialogue. Engage people, right? Again in Purulia, we were taken to a place where the government has put up many, schemes, projects at one place, Matir Srishti, about 40 kilometers from Purulia town. And there was a butterfly park, right? And there were people who were engaged in butterfly park as people who would explain the visitors who would be there about the life cycle of butterfly, about how do you distinguish between one butterfly to the other, like some kind of a guide, right? And we were astonished to know that the guides, what were the educational qualifications of these so-called guides, class 8, class 10, but they could explain us. And they learned about the butterfly and their types and life cycles, this and that, from two sources. One NGO, which gave them some literature, and YouTube. Believe me, YouTube, you are surprised. Right? Here is something, right, which opened our eyes. In deep Purulia, which is considered to be one of the underdeveloped states, we have a butterfly park manned by people who are not even matriculates, and they are doing wonderful. Story. If you write this story, if you engage with this and write this story, right, you will do two things, two good things to the society. One, probably it will bring more people to that project, which will add to the economy of the entire project, which will sustain the project, right? And second, probably this will boost the morale of the people manning there. And who were these people? And what were they doing before it started? They were all laborers. They went to different states, right, to work. Provashi Shramik. They came back home, right, during this pandemic. And the government did this project basically to engage them. But somebody somewhere thought of good ideas and it clicked. And you have something which can draw people there. It can boost economy, tourism, right? If you write about this dispassionately, right, this will be a good development story. You don't have to eulogize the government. You don't have to. You don't have to. Right? Write about people. Keep people at the center of the story. That is what Manideepa told you. That is what all good development journalists, including Mrinal Chatterjee, will tell you. Keep people at the center of the story and tell people a story. Right? Third is you seek change. You see something which doesn't agree to the natural justice. Right? It doesn't agree. So, for example, I knew this, but I didn't know it has come to this. I knew that over a period of time, for the last 5-10 years, the child marriage in West Bengal is becoming a problem. But I didn't know this has come to this. Right? And it has been happening for the last 15-20 years. Continuously. Right? People in villages, they are marrying off their daughters at younger and younger ages. When do people do that? A, there could be 3-4 reasons. Think. When you seek change, all of you will agree with me that this is not just done, right? But when you seek change, I entirely agree with Monidipa. Think and do some research. Why should a person marry his daughter off at a young age? One, social pressure. That's not now. Social milieu. It used to be there in 19th century, not now. Second, when you are dirt poor, you don't have anything to feed. That's not the case in West Bengal, right? So, why? Why? Does it has to anything to do with the social security system? Think. Right? Like you do research, right? Do some research. See what is the law and order situation, right? Look at NSRB data, police data, right? And when you mine this data, this is called data journalism. You mine data, aggregate data, or you take from aggregated data and explain or try to explain the hypothesis that you have. This is how you write good development stories. And you don't have to look at political pressures in this kind of story because you are quoting government records. You are quoting records which are in public. Right? Then another, spread an aura of positivity. This is another kind of story, which again can have ripple effects. The story I just told you about that butterfly park manned by people who are under matriculate. Right? Consider the case of Manji in Bihar, rural Bihar, right? Who made a road. A film has been made on him. You can watch that film, right? Nawazuddin Siddiqui is the main protagonist. So these are the stories that you can write. I'll end with 3-4 tips. 1, do research. Think. Go to the spot. Talk to people. See for yourself. Observe. 3, learn how do you mine data and aggregate it and analyze it. That's data journalism, right? And last but not the least, have empathy, not sympathy. Aha chuchu kore development journalism kora jay na. In fact, aha chuchu kore journalism kora jay na. Forget about development journalism, right? You have to have empathy, the genuine concern for people. If you have that genuine concern for people and nose for news and intellect to demystify jargon, to read through statistics, right? Then you can be a good development journalist. The country needs you. In fact, the country needs you more than ever. Thank you very much. Now, questions. Any questions? Welcome.
Please raise your hands and ask all the questions that you had in the first session as well. Everyone who spoke and others, please. We have about 10 minutes for questions, so please go ahead with your questions. Others who have spoken earlier, you can speak again. Abhijit, Shubroto, Rahi, and others. Lalit, and there are all the other students. So within 5 minutes, my colleague Devayan will share a feedback link, and you'll need to submit that for your certificates. But before that, please keep the conversation going. Are you there, students, or you're not there? Yeah, Shubhrata, please.
হ্যাঁ স্যার, হ্যাঁ আমি বাংলাতেই বলবো।
বলো।
হ্যাঁ স্যার, প্রথমেই যা আপনি বললেন তাতে ভালো। এমনিতে প্রথমেই যা বুঝলাম আদানি আম্বানির বিষয়ে, সবকা সাথ সবকা বিকাশ স্লোগান ইজ টোটালি লাই। এমনিতে আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি আদানির বিকাশ হচ্ছে, আমাদের গরিবদের বিনাশ হচ্ছে। ফলে এমনিতে পুরুলিয়ার আপনি যা বললেন সেই সব সম্পর্কে একটু মানে আমার যা ধারণা, এমনিতে এখনো অন্ধবিশ্বাসের দিকটা আমাদের পুরুলিয়া জেলায় অনেকটাই রয়েছে, যেরকম ভাবে ডাইনি ভূত থেকে শুরু করে।
একটু শোনো সুব্রত, পরিষ্কার শুধু কোয়েশ্চেন করো, কারণ মানে আমরা এইখানে
হ্যাঁ 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 হ্যাঁ
তুমি শুধু কোয়েশ্চেন করো, ব্যাকড্রপটা দাও।
হ্যাঁ 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 ফলে সেটাই আমি বলতে চাইছি যে আমরা যেরকম ভাবে, যেটা স্যার বললেন যে 1995 সালে সেপ্টেম্বর মাসে যেরকম ভাবে ওই গণেশের দুধ খাওয়ার একটা গল্প, এটা রয়েছে আমাদের এইদিকে পুরুলিয়া জেলার বেশিরভাগ শহরে না হলেও আমার একটা গ্রামের দিকে এখনো একটা রয়েছে ডাইনি ভূতের এই অংশটা, একটা অন্ধবিশ্বাসের দিকটা এখনো প্রচন্ড পরিমাণে রয়েছে। ফলে সেইটা আমরা জার্নালিস্টের স্টুডেন্ট হয়ে আর কি, আমরা সেটা কিরকম ভাবে, ধরুন এগুলো নিয়ে তো ওই বিজ্ঞান মঞ্চের এইসব দিক দিয়ে করে, কিন্তু আমাদের এইসব দিক দিয়ে ধারণা নেই। ফলে আমাদের যেরকম ভাবে বেগুনকুদরে রয়েছে একটা ভুতুড়ে স্টেশন নাম হিসেবে পরিচিত, এইগুলো একটা রয়েছে। এটাই আর কি আমার প্রশ্ন আর কি জানার। আমরা এটা স্কিল ডেভেলপমেন্ট হিসেবে কিভাবে নিতে পারি জার্নালিজমের স্টুডেন্ট?
Subrata wants to know how does a journalist engage with stories which talks about superstition or which wants to demystify superstition, right? Subrata, তুমি জানতে চাও আমি স্টোরিটা কি করে লিখবো?
হ্যাঁ।
নম্বর 1, তুমি কি নিজে বিশ্বাস করো গণেশ কিংবা নন্দী দুধ খেতে পারে?
না স্যার,
পারে না। কেন বিশ্বাস করো না?
কারণ স্যার একটা মাটির জিনিস কি কখনো এটা হয়? বা ধরুন এখন শিবের যে টেম্পল হয়ে যাচ্ছে, যে একটা সামান্য পাথরের উপরে দুধ ঢালছে।
বাস সুব্রত, বাস। এখন অনেক মানুষ বিশ্বাসও করছেন, many people are believing that Ganesh is drinking milk, Nandi is drinking milk, right? What you need to do, that in order to explain the phenomena, you have to ask one expert. আর এখানে এক্সপার্ট মানে দিল্লি বোম্বেতে বসে থাকা এক্সপার্ট না, যে কোনো গ্রামের বিজ্ঞান শিক্ষক তোমাকে বলে দিতে পারবেন সারফেস টেনশন জিনিসটা কি। গেট মাই পয়েন্ট? তো এখানে as a journalist, if you as a rational thinker do not believe that this can happen, then what you need to do is to find out somebody who can explain you the phenomena. Then you write যে এই জিনিসটা হয় বলে বিজ্ঞান শিক্ষক অমুক বললেন, then the story is complete. I'm clear, Subrata?
হ্যাঁ স্যার, থ্যাংক ইউ।
এটা লেখার সঙ্গে সঙ্গে যে ওখানে অনেক লোক জড়ো হচ্ছে, পুজো হচ্ছে, এ ঠিক আছে। এ লেখার সঙ্গে সঙ্গে it is your duty as a journalist to explain the phenomena so that people will understand the phenomena and not fall into the trap of superstition. That's how you write these kind of stories. Right, Subrata?
হ্যাঁ স্যার, থ্যাংক ইউ।
Thank you. Any other question, please? I was expecting more questions. Right, USP, you can take over now.
There are no more questions, that's all.
Yeah, I was okay. ठीक है, नहीं है.
Snasi sir, you want to say something?
Yes, yes. It is a great pleasure and privilege. And personally, it is something very, very satisfying to see that the students from North Bengal University, University of Gaurbango, and SKBU, and myself, and I can vouch for Dr. Pandey and Dr. Chatterjee, that we are very happy to include all of you and also IIMC Dhenkanal to do a networking. At the end of the day, we are together. See, when we talk about development, this togetherness to being with each other is very important. And the digitalization has made a democratization. Wherever you are, which institution do you belong to doesn't matter, as far as, accessing the latest discourses and literature. So I thank all of you, and I request you, which I personally believe that somewhere in the world somebody has given its resources for which it is taking place, and you all have, including all the resource persons, have been giving time. So please try to get some takeaway. Language is not a bar. Those of you who could fluent in Hindi, those of you who are fluent in English, those of you who are fluent in Bangla, please feel free. After 75 years of independence, every citizen in India has a right to speak in his or her language of choice. So please do not get carried away. More or less, we have everybody speaks all these three languages. And if Odia journalism students are there, you can speak that. And I think somebody will help us out in getting this. So please be there for 3 days and try to achieve something out of it, because you are giving weekend evenings. I know weekend evenings after this pandemic is very, very precious to you, my dear students. Especially I can think of IIMC Dhenkanal campus, that you should have loitered and you should have traveled in the campus during this time. But still, please, we cannot have it during the daytime. So evening, extra time. So please make use of this. I have no words to thank our own team member, Professor Mrinal Chatterjee. I told you, a passionate and competent person is with us. So that is a great help, sir. And I know you are always there. And I'm happy that Press Club is able to be involved in something good, something for upgradation of journalism. And my dear students, we would like to see that the journalism profession and media education, or IEC, or marketing communication, or advertising public relations in future are in good hands. Thank you very much. And I cannot thank enough Dr. Umashankar Pandey and Manushri Maiti and Debayan Vaduri for your wonderful contribution. It's a teamwork, sir. And my dear students, please make use of it. Thank you. Till we meet tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. So students, be there tomorrow at 7 p.m. sharp. Tomorrow we have a session on data journalism and then another on fact checking. IIMC Dhenkanal students already had a 5-day session with me, so I'll try and make it different from what we've discussed, and other students will try and make it as useful as possible. The second part tomorrow is on fact checking, and that will be by Professor Shambhit Pal, who was with IIMC Dhenkanal till last year, and is a very well-known journalist and a very well-known academician as well. So be there tomorrow for these 2 sessions, and day after we have again sessions on development economics, and we have another on women, media and children, and then we have the valedictory session. Please feel free to let us know what is it that you want, and we'll have more questions, and we have taken note of your questions for today, and we'll try and address that in tomorrow and later sessions. So till we meet again, same time, same place, have a great time, and see you tomorrow sharp at 7. Hope you've all submitted your feedback forms as well. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.